Today is a special day because every day is a special day. Hi, my name is Daued and thank you for welcoming me into your homes today. I'm very happy to see you again and I hope you're happy to see me too. I hope you're having a good time already, and if you're not, then I promise you will have now, because today together we're going to study something very important, something very amazing, something very useful and something very interesting. I'm telling you, it's going to be so much fun and learning both at the same time, only if you promise to do a very simple thing. You need to pay attention. So please pay attention and listen carefully, because that is the key, that is the secret to make everything super easy. Today I would like to talk to you about this work of literature, this chapter which is called A Triumph of Surgery. But before that, I want you to say something with me, and trust me, it's gonna feel so good. Are you ready? Alright, here we go. It's a new, beautiful, peaceful and positive day today. So I'm going to forget about all my worries and I'm going to enjoy this day. I hope you're feeling better now. So our sincere thanks, and we would like to give due credit to the writer, to the poet, because this is what we need to always do. We should always give sincere thanks and due credit to the writer, to the poet, because they write these stories for us. They write these poems for us, from which we learn a lot of good things, a lot of moral values, and sometimes we get entertained too. So a sincere thanks to the writer, James Alfred, who has written this amazing work of literature, who has written this story for us. It's called A Triumph of Surgery, as I mentioned earlier. So this story is about a dog whose name is Tricky. Now, some of you are getting excited. I know some of you love dogs very much. Some of you love cats. So those of you who love pets, this one is especially for you. So this story is about a dog named Tricky. Tricky belongs to a lady. Her name is Mrs. Pomfrey. She's extremely rich. She is super wealthy, and she overfeeds this dog. Okay, overfeeding meaning feeding a dog too much. Excessive, and excessive of anything can be bad. Okay, so this dog lives a lavish life. This dog has all kinds of luxuries that most human beings cannot afford to have, that most human beings would fail to achieve. But this dog, since this dog belongs to a rich person, Mrs. Pomfrey, she is giving this dog everything. She's doing everything that she can for the dog. But the mistake that she is making is she is overfeeding the dog. She is doing it with good intentions. Of course, she has good intentions. She loves the dog very much. So this is like an act of love from her side, and from her point of view, from her perspective, from her nazariya. She is just doing it for love. She is overfeeding the dog. But this is not good for the dog. This is not good for Tricky. Tricky is gaining weight. Tricky is about to fall sick, and Tricky has become lazy. Tricky is not like the way he used to be. With the passage of time, his health is going down. His health has not been very good. So there is a doctor nearby, and we call vet, V-E-T, vet, to pets doctor, animal doctor, we call the doctor pet. We would anyway refer him as doctor. So the doctor observes Tricky. Tricky doesn't look good. The doctor is driving and observing the dog, observing this dog Tricky in the neighborhood. Tricky doesn't look good. Something is wrong with Tricky. What could be wrong with him? And then in a conversation with Mrs. Pomfrey, the doctor got to know that Tricky is not doing good. Tricky has not been doing well. Tricky has been ill. Mrs. Pomfrey has told the doctor about the laziness, about the increase in laziness, and Tricky doesn't do anything. Tricky has stopped enjoying life. It has, and I am very concerned, doctor. I am very concerned about my dog. I am very much worried about my dog. And then Tricky's health is going down, going down, going down. This doctor has told Mrs. Pomfrey that I need to take your dog to my clinic. I need to take your dog to my clinic. Your dog needs to be hospitalized now. If we don't do it now, it would be too late. Are you really gonna do it? My Tricky, my poor boy, my poor dog, Tricky. This lady is getting a little emotional because this lady, as we know, loves the dog very much from the bottom of her heart. But for the health issues that need to be cured, that need to be taken care of, Tricky has to go. Tricky has to go to the clinic with the doctor. Now the dog goes to the clinic with the doctor in his car, and this doctor is very caring, compassionate, kind, empathetic. He's decided to take Tricky in his car on his own. He's taking this dog to his clinic. And Mrs. Pumphrey is really worried, but if they don't do it, Tricky would be in big trouble. Tricky is overweight now. Tricky has become super lazy. Tricky has stopped enjoying his life, and the chances of his survival, there are very few chances of his survival, according to the doctor and according to Mrs. Pumphrey. So this is why they have decided to take this step. Now Tricky goes to the clinic. Tricky lives there. Mrs. Pumphrey must be thinking at home, oh, Tricky is gonna go through this treatment, Tricky is gonna go through this surgery, Tricky is gonna go through this operation. Oh, I'm really worried about Tricky. But what is happening there? Let me tell you what's happening there in the clinic. Tricky's diet was restricted there. He was not given excessive food. He was not overfed there by anyone. He was being taken care of, and he was being allowed to play with other dogs. In the beginning, the other dogs wanted to attack Tricky, or they were not nice with Tricky. They were or something like that. They must have done at Tricky, but Tricky seemed uninterested. He's just not paying attention. You can bark as much as you want. I don't care. You guys, you dogs. So Tricky himself is a dog, and when other dogs came, maybe they wanted to provoke Tricky, maybe they wanted to play with Tricky, whatever their intentions were, as they were not very, but this is for sure, that they were not very welcoming of Tricky. They were not very happy with his presence, because he was a new dog there and they were living there. So Tricky was not interested. And as with the passage of time, the doctor kept observing Tricky and Tricky's behavior, and kept making him exercise, and the doctor gave him limited food, good diet, not excessive, not overfeeding, taking care and making him exercise properly. And with the passage of time, Tricky has started to play with other dogs. Now Tricky seems happy. Tricky seems to be doing well. Tricky plays with other dogs, and they all play together, they run together, they do a lot of things together, and in the middle of the night, every night, they chase mice there. So they are enjoying. They chase rats in the middle of the night, and they enjoy a lot. And Tricky's health is improving now. Mrs. Pumphrey keeps sending expensive wine, eggs, and super luxurious food for Tricky. But Tricky doesn't need all that. Since Tricky is on restricted diet, the doctor is not going to overfeed him. So doctor and his colleagues and other people who work in the clinic, they would enjoy the eggs and wine and meat and all the good stuff which Mrs. Pumphrey, the owner of Tricky, was sending, and they used to really enjoy. And they used to say, oh doctor, I wish we could keep Tricky for as long as possible, because we have been really enjoying this good food. So they used to eat that good food which was coming for Tricky. And with the passage of time, Tricky was getting better, better and better. His health has improved now, and now the time has come for Tricky to go home. Mrs. Pumphrey, the doctor has informed Mrs. Pumphrey, you can come and take Tricky with you now. Mrs. Pumphrey has come to take Tricky with him, and it's time to go home. So the Tricky lived there in the clinic and with doctor in his special area with other dogs, enjoyed a lot, played a lot, started to live happily, started to enjoy this life again. He's no more a lazy dog. He's no more an overweight dog. He's no more a dog that doesn't want to move. He's not behaving like a turtle or tortoise anymore. He's enjoying now. He looks better than ever. His health has improved so much now. Now when Mrs. Pumphrey has arrived, Tricky is very happy to see Mrs. Pumphrey, and Tricky came running towards Mrs. Pumphrey. And Mrs. Pumphrey and Tricky, they are so delighted, so happy to meet each other. And Mrs. Pumphrey is so happy, and she says to the doctor, I would call this a triumph of surgery. So this is how the dog Tricky gets well. So what have we learned from this amazing work of literature? We have learned that we should not overfeed. I repeat, we should not overfeed our pet. Never, 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 never should we ever do that, okay? As parents, parents also make this mistake. They start to feed their child too much, excessive. They start to overfeed their children. They think it's a gesture of love. They think they're doing good for them, but actually they don't know they are sometimes harming the children. In the same way, sometimes you as pet owners, you are harming your pets by overfeeding them. So you need to definitely take care of their diet, and you need to make them exercise. Especially dogs need a lot of exercise, okay? Dogs need to be, you need to take a dog out for a walk. You need to play with the dog. Okay, cats like to take care of themselves. Cats can take care of themselves, but dogs require a lot of care, and you need to care for them. You need to give them time. You need to play with them. Okay, so I hope you have understood. So this is it for today. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you very soon again. I really enjoyed spending this time with you. Peace be with you. God bless you.